Can we get the package up as well, please?
Yeah, we are live and I'll have the package up.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I am going to call the regular meeting of council for June 28th, it being 6:30 to order. You have before you a copy of tonight's agenda. We are adding, be under new business, 6C, an excused absence for Councillor Chambers. We are also going to switch A and B. So A is going to be audited financial statements would be our first new business, and B is going to be the preliminary flood damage assessment. So I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. And if you give me 2 seconds, I'll be able to see all of you. Or not. Okay, there we go. Okay, looking for a motion. Councillor Dufert, seconded by Councillor Willows. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 3 is a declaration of interest. Is there any declarations of interest tonight? None being noted, we will move on to announcements, awards, ceremonies, and presentations. So before I go to council, I had the honor of attending the 2022 graduation ceremonies today at DJ, and it was sure nice to be back in public and together. So it was great to see, not to mention the size of that graduating class. And they were the kids that started when COVID, so grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12, they've had to pivot. And so it was great to see that amazing resilience from our young folk in this community. And I'm sure we wish them all well in their future endeavors. That being said, any more announcements from council? Anything from administration?
Thank you, Your Worship. Maybe I'll just take the opportunity now to welcome and introduce our new Assistant Senior Administrative Officer, Patrick Bergen. He's on the line, camera's probably off, but he will speak in the administrative inquiries today. So he's on his first week with us. He's relocated from Alberta, where he was the Chief Administrative Officer for the villages of Champion and Carmangay for the last 6 years. And prior to that, he's had experience as a councillor and a deputy mayor in the city of Chestermere. So pretty diverse administrative and governance background. So quite happy to have him. Looking forward to the capacity he's going to bring to the senior leadership team, especially now that we're dealing with an immense amount of work with our unplanned flood recovery overheads. And he's going to play a critical role in advancing our asset management program the next several years, and as well as our public communications. So we look forward to opportunities outside of Zoom where he can meet Patrick more formally.
Thank you. Item number 5, we'll move to administrative inquiries. SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. First off, I'll just note that the Director of Protective Services has a conflict this evening, so he's actually meeting with our flood monitoring crew. They had scheduled this as part of our flood response debrief activity. So I'll give a little update on what's happening with Protective Services and try to answer any questions that you might have. Continues to be quite busy with emergency responses. Ambulance calls are up to 59 for the month. A few false alarms and one fire call. We are expecting to see increased demands through the announcement of the doctor shortages in town again. Typically what happens then is we do have a lot more responses to medevacs where patients are taken to Yellowknife or other hospitals. So it does put some more stress on our volunteers and staff as well. We have issued, the fire chief did issue a fire ban in the community last week due to the extreme fire danger forecast for MENAR. Continued forecast of warm, dry temperatures. So we will be keeping that in place until we are out of the extreme forecast. Also, the fire department held the bike rodeo and had a really good turnout last Saturday. Partnerships with Arctic Energy Alliance and others, Friendship Center, and supporting that. So I think there was about 45 kids that attended, and about 100 total, all 100 with other participants and workers. As mentioned, our flood debrief has started. We've met, or the Director of Protective Services has met on June 16th with the fire department members. They went through a few hours of debrief of what happened during the response activities. Also met with our IT provider, the president, who was in town last week and works with us on our monitoring equipment and that support role. So discussions on what happened there. There was some instability with the monitoring, and then especially after stations were taken down by ice. So work to be done there, and some good input coming back through the discussions. I mentioned already the monitoring crew. There's a meeting going on tonight. Coast Guard Auxiliary, we've been meeting with them, I think starting yesterday and into maybe today and over the next couple of days. There's a meeting tomorrow with our Town of Hay River, the breakup planning team, and other debriefs scheduled as part of the work with Health and Social Services, MACA, Infrastructure, and other EMO membership groups. So after the debrief is completed, we will be putting together an after-action review that will summarize the debriefs and get it into council's hands and other stakeholders to finalize. And of course, the goal is always towards improvements and recognizing opportunities for future years. We've been at this for probably 60 years. Some of this is unprecedented this year, but always changing and evolving to make things better and safer for the public. And just one last note on bylaw. So a lot of the focus, we've sent out a notice some time ago, probably a month or so ago, about Fraser Place, the development that's occurring there, and there was a lot of property owners in that neighborhood that had assets, vehicles, etc., onto the development area there. So for the most part, the residents have been quite compliant and have moved materials, equipment, etc., out of there. So it's gone through a process to get it to that position. And the bylaw officer is off this week, so Travis is providing coverage there. So I'll maybe just stop to see if there's any questions, Your Worship, on protective services areas.
Any questions from council for our SAO? None being noted, back to you.
Thank you, Worship. We'll move next to the Director of Finance and Administration.
Thank you and good evening, Your Worship. So tax notices will be in the mail this week. Residents are reminded that council has extended the deadline for when taxes are due, which is now set for September 30th, 2022. Reminder for residents that interest will begin to accrue on any unpaid balances at a rate of 1.8% monthly after that date. The town has scheduled tax auction for delinquent properties in accordance with Property Assessment Taxation Act, scheduled for July 11th at 9 a.m. in the town hall, and more information on that can be available at the town's website. Lastly, final notices have been sent to local businesses in regards to business license renewal. Businesses operating within Hay River's municipal bounds that have not renewed their licenses will be subject to enforcement in accordance with our bylaw. And that concludes our update. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for our Director of Finance? None noted. Back to SAO Smith.
Thanks, your worship. We'll go next to the Director of Recreation and Community Services.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Community Center is generally back up to operational hours and services for the summer months. Still some minor evacuation center details to wrap up, but it's fairly minor, and it's stuff that we're dealing with as we continue with regular operations and resuming our summer services. A lot of our summer programming resumed last week and this week. We have full day youth programming available at the community center now that schools are out. Our full summer heat camp resumes next week. There are 40 spots available. Most weeks are at capacity, very limited availability, but there are some spots available and we're still taking registrations. There are 2-week intensive swimming lesson sets that begin next week. There will be 3 sets through the month of July and August, and these 2-week sessions, kids are in the pool 4 days a week, and so they can progress quicker through their learnings and their improving their swimming abilities. Softball seasons are underway for the adult groups. That involves regular field maintenance by our staff. We tried to resume with, or tried to work with the youth minor ball program this year, but didn't occur. We'll be reaching out to them to see if anything can happen this summer at all, or plan towards next year. Port Landing is operational as of June 15th, which is as per the bylaw. Seasonal slips are full for this year, and there is availability for short-term docking as well as day use. Fisherman's Wharf Pavilion is being prepared for the Saturday market, which opens this coming Saturday, July 2nd. The insurance company's contractor was in there doing some repairs related to flooding. Maintenance staff, recreation maintenance staff have also been in there. Final preparations are being made, and the pavilion will be ready for Saturday's market. Beach attendant partnership, unfortunately, will not be a go this summer. That's related to some complications for the town as well as GNWT Parks Department. Complications related to flood remediation, some of the additional costs, and determined it was better to set our priorities elsewhere for this summer. Maintenance crews have been specialized into 4 crews to sustain a variety of offsite facilities and services during summer months. So we have a flood remediation and trail improvement crew, parks and green space, mowing and maintenance crew, sports fields and special events crew, and facility maintenance and improvements crew. Our senior maintenance staff are assigned as crew leaders or one maintenance staff assigned as crew leader to each of those 4 crews. We have 10 summer students hired in total. Those students were all hired via the Canada Summer Jobs Program or the GNWT Small Communities Employment Program. This includes high school students that are just starting this week, so we'll be at full staff this week and next week. And it also includes the reassignment of 3 of our lifeguards. This again was due to the beach attendant partnership being postponed for this year. Some of the ongoing projects that I have on my plate and that are larger projects and tied to the capital plan. We did get confirmation from GNWT Infrastructure that 2 of our summer cap funding applications were approved. And again, that's for the Community Accessibility Program. So a funding application that we submitted in partnership with the ski club was approved for $50,000, and that will go towards conversion of LED lighting on the trails, as well as some trail brushing and cleanup. The other project that was approved was the improvement of drainage and improvement of the road surface on Hoffman Way, which is the road to the ski club and the golf club. And our funding application for $140,000 was approved, again, through that summer cap program. We had submitted a 3rd application, which was the town's 3rd priority, and that was for further improvements to the Vale Island multi-use rec area. That That application was denied for this year, but recommended to resubmit, or we have the possibility of resubmitting in future years. Rec department has an RFP that closes this week. It's an RFP that combines some work tied to the green space enhancement projects that have been presented to council previously, tied to our ISIP and CanNor funding. Also includes the work at that's being planned for Hoffman Way. That RFP closes, I believe it's Thursday. And we've been discussing with some of the local contractors and construction companies. We do expect to have some bids there. The town has also been invited to resubmit on a funding application, a $200,000 funding application that we submitted previously to the Healthy Canada's initiative. The program is being reopened because there was an additional $29 million committed by the federal government. We'll be reviewing the scope and the budget. This is an application that was previously presented to council. Again, it's tied to our green space enhancement projects, and we do plan to resubmit that. We're waiting on our funding application to Trans-Canada Trail. It's $150,000 from Trans-Canada Trail. I've had promising discussions and follow-up with some of the representatives after having submitted. Indication that we've given is that the prioritization is towards flood recovery and remediation. They seemed in favor, but we have not received formal approval yet. I'll be following up with their representatives to see where we're at with that. Lastly, just want to update council on some of the community group outreach that our staff have been continuing. So in May and June, the community group litter pickup campaign occurred. All 12 sites that were identified were assigned to community groups, and the cleanups were completed in those areas. Also, I've been in ongoing communications with golf club executive and ski club executive members. I've got some informal meetings planned with some of their members, partly to discuss the summer cap funding and also to discuss some of the ongoing initiatives they have on the go. Lastly, I'll be attending the Beautification Committee's regular meeting on July 9th. Also ongoing communications with them regarding watering and some of the flowers that will be around the community, both from the town planting and as well as the Beautification Committee's initiatives. And those communications are ongoing. Those are my updates at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for our Director of Recreation? None noted. Back to SAO Smith. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Worship. I'll go next to the Acting Director of Public Works and Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll start with a little bit on the O&M side there. We're going to start hauling gravel this week to all our gravel roads, getting prepped for calcium. That's got bumped to next week there. Continue with that. Hopefully next week. We're having issues getting the aggregate, actually. The rest of our guys are still doing a little bit of road maintenance. We're watering a lot of the gravel roads, trying to keep the dust down as best we can with these hot temperatures. It's pretty tough going forward with that. Doing a little bit of work at the graveyard with leveling off the landscape and cleaning up a little bit there. I believe we're also heading out in the morning to put up flower pots and flags in the downtown area. Also be doing a little more street sweeping in the morning, or sorry, Thursday morning, as well as all our crosswalk painting in the areas aside from Capitol Crescent. We won't be doing too much on Capitol on the O&M side, as it's going to be tore up this summer for new road work. On the capital project side, Beaver Crescent, Caribou Crescent, and Riverview, that project has started it and they're in full swing, laying out more gravel, getting things shaped up there. It's looking really good in the areas along the tree line there where there was material piled up. We'll be moving into the last 140 meters of water main on the south end by DJ within the next, I think they'll be starting probably a week and a half from now. We're just waiting on confirmation from the schools because we'll be shutting the water down for approximately, I think, in 5 days. I'll know more about the timelines on Wednesday's meeting. Same with the Capital Crescent project. I'll know more on that timeline. Industrial Drive, Fraser Place, some work has started and it has stopped. Again, I'll know more when that's going to start back up again. We're just getting ready to haul the overburden off of Fraser to the landfill. We'll be using that as cover. Speaking of the landfill, we've started hauling cover material out there. I've been working with the contractor to get the construction material side covered up as fast as we can. And another flood related issue, the road to Paradise Gardens is completed now. The Department of Infrastructure has done a really good job out there. I'm currently looking at seeding options between the new road and the riverbank, help a little bit with erosion and bank stability. Our lift station number 1 is still running on 1 pump. Fine. We should have the second pump here in a couple of weeks. And we're also looking at doing an assessment with our engineering firm on the entire structure and materials inside with our dealing with our insurance company. And I believe that is all I have for now. Yes.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for our Director of, or Acting Director of Public Works? Councillor Boucher, go ahead.
I know we had some discussions about the Riverview project and maybe raising, especially on the two ends, the road there. Have we completed that, or have we kind of assessed that? Is that still a project going forward?
Thank you. SAO Smith?
Thank you, Worship. I'll let the acting director speak to that.
So yes, we have. There was a request for information, I believe, sent out to the contractor, and we were just waiting on I'll use that.
I think he's frozen.
I think he may have froze. I'm not sure if you can hear us early. Froze up there for a minute. I can just finish his thoughts there. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, we're looking at, we sent a request for information to the contractor on the pricing to raise the low areas at the north and the south side. I'm still awaiting those. However, I should have those at tomorrow's meeting as well, and I'll pass that information on to SAO Smith.
Thank you, Director. Anything further from council? Nothing noted. Back to SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. We'll go next to the Assistant Senior Administrative Officer, Patrick Bergen. It's just in his first week, but we'll give him an opportunity to let us know how that week's going.
There we go. Thank you, SAO Smith, and thanks, Your Worship and Council. Today marks my first full week here, so my report will probably be a bit shorter than it hopefully will be in the future here. Most of my activities have been focused on familiarizing myself with the organization and the initiatives and where things are. I did attend my first management meeting yesterday with I think most or all of senior management. It'd be quite a privilege to work with them. I'm quite excited about it. I did, with regards to the flood donation committee, I did touch base with the chair, Reverend Francis, and updated him on the funds that were available to date. Both the funds that are available and ones that are earmarked or have been expended already. Their group had met once, I think, more to familiarize themselves, and I did reach out and offer to attend their next meeting, and hope to have that going sometime this week. The communications strategy and website work is being reviewed. I was granted access to the website, so I was able to start looking at some of the analytics with that. I hope to have an update here in the next few weeks on that. Tomorrow, I'm having my first meeting with asset management consultant at 2 with Stefan. And next week, we'll be reviewing the 4 software options that are available for it. After July 1st, I'll be meeting with Jill, the tourism coordinator. I did swing in there and have a look at the information center, and she's done a great job there. It's quite impressive. I do have a bit of an update from her with regards to the Canada Day activities. She's going to post that up tonight or tomorrow morning, a full schedule, but the activities are with 2 local indigenous governments and organizations. So on Friday, the setup is from 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Parade is from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. And the flag raising will be at 11:30 to noon. The games and events, barbecue, block party stations will all be from 11:45 to 3, with the teardown being from 3 to 4 or 5 when it's complete. It looks like so far she's got 11 floats in the parade. I think she's working on a few more. There is 11, I believe 11 volunteers for Canada Day, and another 6 for the barbecue, which I think includes some of yourselves. There's going to be 17 game stations, so there's quite a bit there. I think $1,200 for the sponsorship for the money tunnel. And there are musicians lined up. She's just waiting for the details. So again, the details will be posted up either tonight or tomorrow. So that's it for now. Hopefully it'll be my shortest one.
Thank you. Any questions for our Assistant SAO? Welcome, Patrick, and welcome to the team.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Deputy Mayor Dowie, go ahead.
Thanks, Your Worship. No, I was just going to say the same thing. Welcome to the new ASAO and to the community and to the organization.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, no further questions. Back to SAO Smith.
Thanks, Your Worship. So for myself, I've been spending a fair amount of time with Patrick. Hopefully, I'd like to invest some more time there, but he's been patient through the process so far. So anyways, orientating him, he's a real self-starter, but going through work plans and what he'll be focusing on over the next coming months. Outside of that, good portion of time spent on our flood recovery activities. Worked a fair amount with the directors on putting together our preliminary flood damage assessment reporting, which is in front of council tonight on the agenda. And I can speak to that more further on that item, of course. And still ongoing weekly meetings with MACA to discuss some of the critical flood issues and receive status updates on their disaster assistance policy implementation and support that we need. Just a note, they did provide last week an indication that only a handful of private residents had at that point accepted temporary housing through the RFP process that was initiated over the last month with housing providers. So we'll see. It's probably influenced by the summer months and temperatures and having campers and such. So we assume that this could pick up into the fall. And yeah, we are awaiting our feedback on our own listing of flood damage assets and our cost estimates that they've submitted to them. So hope to get more information this week when we next meet with them. Coming out of yesterday's public meeting with the Minister of MACA, I know the mayor, maybe other councillors were in attendance. The GNWT announced today exceptions to their disaster assistance policy, which includes funding beyond the original $240,000 cap for residential and business repairs, and they've increased the cap up to $600,000 with some other conditions and terms surrounding that and other elements. So I think good news overall for the community and those the residential and business types. Am a little concerned with some of the language that's been expressed through it, and we are administration is seeking clarity from MACA on the impact of the announcement, or if there is any impact on us as a local authority, operating previously with the understanding that there wasn't really a cap on municipal asset damage and repairs to those. Had meetings with the insurance companies, adjusters, had one this week to discuss the assessment of our lift station damage, which is very critical asset and sustains a significant amount of damage. We are awaiting a fee letter from our engineering partner to complete a structural, mechanical, and electrical assessment work. That assessment is covered through our insurance, and that will guide the town and our insurance company getting that information back on our options for long-term repair versus replace type scenarios of our assets or components of those assets within that building. And also we're starting to execute our flood response and recovery recognition program. So a lot of people to thank in organizations and communities, and it's taken some time to get to this point, but over the next month into July, we want to make sure we're doing that properly. I'll also mention the neighborhood Meet Your Neighbor campaign was launched last week officially through our promotion. We have our administrations managing that through support of the recreation department. So a lot of positive feedback, at least on social media right now, and hopefully we'll see some uptake as we look to get our community members together and work and recognize some of the hard times that we've been through COVID and now the flood response. Other activities not flood related that I'll note, had discussions with the NWT Housing, or Housing NWT now, on the community housing plan. So that there was stakeholder meetings scheduled for May that were interrupted by the flooding, so those had to be suspended. And discussions now are having a meeting between the town and Housing NWT to talk about the impact of the flooding on the project. Housing situation has once again changed, but I think probably still hope that we can continue with the project implementation in early fall. Lots of good work being done on that project, so I think we council should be happy with the completion of that and the information that's being released through it. GNWT has scheduled consultation with community governments to discuss key fiscal and economic challenges. I think this is just part of their recurring budget preparation exercises. So there is an online meeting tomorrow, and that invite's been shared with the mayor and our finance committee chair. Also, our solid waste collection and solid waste facility management RFPs have closed in June. Just trying to get together and organize the analysis and needed on those and discuss with the finance committee in July. And I think that's all I have for you, unless there's any questions for me or anything else that directors brought up today.
Thank you, SAO. Do we have any questions for our SAO? Nothing noted. So we will move on to item number 6, which is new business. Item 6A is the 2021 audited financial statements, and I will pass that back to SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. We've worked closely with your auditor, Ashton's Accounting, and Drew Queen is partner on the line today. But I'm going to pass this on. Sam's been out on vacation, but working through this process to get it to you to date, a little later than we had anticipated. Again, another flood impact this time, but I'll pass it on to the report's gone to the finance committee previously, but I'll pass this on to Sam to speak to anything at this time.
Thank you, SAO Smith, Madam Mayor. As SAO Smith mentioned, we have Drew Queen on the line, who's our auditor. He'll be available to answer any questions along with myself at the end of my presentation. So I'll start with just providing a high-level review of the town's financial results and discuss the reserves. And then, as I said, open it up for questions at the end. Stacy, if you could jump to page 54, please. Thank you. So I just want to start by directing any readers of the financial statements to this page. This is the auditor's report. So this is where they basically provide their opinion on the results of the financials. And this year, as with previous years, it's a clean audit in all material respects. If you can jump to page 56, please. Thank you. So page 56 is the beginning of our financial statements. This is the statement of financial position. Just so for any viewers or anyone listening, the financial statements, this is a consolidated basis. The town has 3 funds. Those funds are our general fund, our utility fund, and our land fund. The general fund is really the catch-all for anything that doesn't fit into the other 2. Our utility fund is all of the operations and assets relating to our utility and wastewater system. And the land fund relates to leases and land development. But what I'm going to be going through tonight is the town's operations on a consolidated basis. However, all the details of each individual fund are in the notes and the schedules at the back part of the financial statements. So I'll start just by going through the financial assets for the town. You can see the cash position at year end is still strong and comparable with previous year. We had a pretty significant increase in our accounts receivable at year end, up about $3.6 million from the previous year, and that's largely related to we still had our gas tax receivable at year end. There was a bit of a delay in us receiving that payment, and we also had a significant ICIP. ICIP is Investment Canada Infrastructure Program. So that's relating to the lift station and the extensive road work being done on Riverview, Caribou, and Beaver Crescent. So at year end, we had a receivable from them, and that's showing in that amount. If you could scroll down a little bit, please, Stacy, on this page. Within our liabilities, I'll note that there was a significant uptick in our accounts payable. Again, that relates almost entirely to the work that we're doing on our capital jobs. We have a holdback on those projects that we basically, as we do progress billing, we hold back a portion of that, and that represents the majority of our accounts payable at year end. Significant reduction in our school taxes payable at year end. That's reflecting the town finally resolving the outstanding transactions relating to the NTCL bankruptcy. So we'd had a significant school tax receivable and payable, which we've subsequently resolved. Deferred contributions. So we have a bit of an uptick in that from the previous year. Deferred contributions is effectively when we've received money from third parties, which needs to be spent on specific projects. Generally speaking, those are going to be capital projects, but we haven't spent it yet. So there's basically a liability associated with that until we spend that money on qualified capital projects. And so as we continue to work through our capital plan, we'll recognize that those contributions as income. The only other item on here I'll note is we continue to pay off our long-term debt. So that balance relates to the addition on the community center, the rink side. And so that balance will continue to get paid off over the coming years. I'll just make a brief comment on the non-financial assets. Tangible capital assets is the bulk of the town's statement of financial position. And that number it's the accumulation of all of our capital additions, whether completed projects or sitting as work in progress, less any recognized amortization expense in the year. So as we've got a lot of capital work on the go right now, you can see there was a significant increase in our capital assets in the year. If you could move to the next page, please, Stacy. Thank you. So this is our statement of operations and surplus. I won't speak to every one of these line items. I'll just speak to the material ones and the ones that have significant changes. So our property tax is very close to our budgeted amount and a slight increase from previous year. And that's in line with council had approved a very modest increase in our targeted property tax revenue from the previous year. We had a slight increase from the previous year in terms of our government transfers for operating, and an increase in our government transfers for water and sewer as well. Water and sewer revenues have increased. Again, we implemented, although we were late in the year in doing so, we implemented a 12.5% increase to our water revenue, which was slightly offset due to a material billing correction during the year. But we do expect that number will come closer to our budgeted figure for 2022. Land sales, lease and development is significantly under budget, and that is a result of, we'd initially anticipated that we would have had several of the Fraser Place lots sold during the year, and obviously that didn't happen. That project was delayed by a year, and so those sales didn't happen. So you'll see that reduction on both the revenue side and on the expense side. And moving to the expenses, overall, the big material changes here are that our recreation and culture expense is up from the previous year, and slightly over budget. And again, 2020 was COVID had its most extreme impact on recreation in 2020, and so that number was significantly lower, almost $1 million lower than what normally would be. Also have our transportation public works expenses are still under budget, but they are starting to approach that figure. That's one area where it's I think it's the result of SAO Smith and the previous director and our current acting director, getting the work done. Ultimately, that's a budget that we want to see spent. And I think it was a point of frustration for a while that we were budgeting to that area and not necessarily getting the work completed. So that's important maintenance work that is now getting done, and that's on the whole a very promising thing. So at the end of the day, although you see under annual surplus and deficit before the undernoted of $480,000 as a deficit, I want to note that number is inclusive of the amortization expense. And so that's actually a very positive result for the town. And at the end of the day, we initially budgeted $1.5 million as our transfer to capital. And that's a transfer to reserves. And I'll speak to the reserves when we get to that page. But what we were able to do, and the recommendation coming from Finance Committee, was to allocate. We ended up having $2.9 million that we were eligible to transfer to reserves. So it's better than what we budgeted, and it's better than the forecast update that I'd provided at Q3. Initially, I think I'd provided an estimate in the range of 2 million or 2.2 million. So the results were even better than that, which is all, that's all good news in the end. One other number that I want to draw attention to, and this is one that I think it's critical that the public understands, that the net government transfers for capital, that line item. So that number is what relates to that deferred liability, deferred contribution figure that I mentioned on the statement of financial position. So that's really us recognizing, the town recognizing those deferred contributions into income. So all of that relates to spend on capital projects, the majority of which this year was Lift Station 4 and the road work being done on Riverview, Beaver, and Caribou. Okay, Stacy, if you could just jump briefly to page 68, please. Thank you. So this note 12 here, this is the note that identifies our reserves, and I just want to speak very briefly to them. Recreation reserve, there was $150,000 allocated as an increase to that. Then the amount actually decreased because we'd spent more out of that reserve account than we allocated to this year. but there was 150 grand that was put there. We allocated $1 million to the municipal infrastructure reserve and $750,000 to the landfill reserve and $1 million to utility infrastructure reserve. So there was, and this year, it was the recommendation from Finance Committee was that, it's a good year because we had an extra, I guess, a slight surplus beyond what we'd initially budgeted. It was a good opportunity to bump up that landfill reserve, especially knowing now with the flood and the impact that that's had on that asset. We're even closer to the point of that asset being, at a point where it'll need to begin remediation. So that was part of the thought process that went into that. Again, anyone that has interest in the details, as with most financial statements, the notes are really where all the details can be found. But I will at this point put it back to council if there's any questions for myself or for our auditor, Drew Queen. Thank you.
Thank you, Director of Finance. Any questions for our Director of Finance? Councillor Bouchard, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, I think something to look at, I think from that operational or our expenses have gone up. Even in this audit, it shows from 2020 to 2021 has gone up. Overall expenses gone up $1 million, and we haven't increased taxes to cover that. Obviously, we generate that from other ways, and I'm not sure what 2022 what our expected expenses are, but I'm seeing that going up as well. So it's just kind of, I thought I'd just suggest, I know 1% is like 60,000 type thing. So a 3% increase that we're recommending, but that we've increased this year is only $180,000 when we see $1 million increase in some of our expenses. And I'm assuming they've gone up again this year. So just more of a statement that, you look at this stuff and you start to ask questions, and I know the public sees a surplus, which we know we're spending a lot of that on capital, that surplus, because we're doing a lot of projects, but our expenses, our overall expenses to operate are going up substantially. So, don't know if there's a question in there, but do we know what would the director know what 2022 projected expenses are?
Director of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have that information at this point. We're a little bit late in terms of we provided our Q1 capital update. We haven't provided a Q1 O&M update. But when we provide our Q2 update for both of those, which I'm targeting to have to you early in August, that would be when we're gonna provide you with a forecast update for the year in terms of where our expenses are going to land. I would caution, however, though, whenever we're comparing to 2022 was an extraordinary year for the world, but also for the town's financials. And our expenses in many areas we were under, and we also had additional revenue that year because the government was providing COVID relief funding. So I expect both of those will normalize into the future. With that said, we just had a catastrophic flood, so there's going to be a lot of outliers for this year as well. But we will provide a more thorough update here once we get into August. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any further questions from council? None noted. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Willows, seconded by Councillor Dufert.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the Council of the Town of Hay River approves the 2021 audited financial statements as recommended by the Finance Committee.
Thank you. So seconded by Councillor Dufert, correct? Thank you. Any questions to the motion? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 6B is as you can tell, I can't see my screen. is the preliminary flood damage assessment with repairs and mitigation. So looking for a motion? Counselor or Deputy Mayor Dowie, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the recommendation that the Council of the Town of Hay River accepts the preliminary flood damage assessments with repair and mitigation estimates report as information.
Thank you. Seconded by? Counselor Dufert. Any questions to the motion? Okay, we'll start with Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wondering if maybe we can just get a quick summary of what we have in here. A fair bit of this, I think, has been in the media already, but just so we have it kind of spoke out to the record. I don't expect administration to delve into every detail, but just maybe a quick run through.
Absolutely. As I called for a question, I was sorry. SAO Smith, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. So the report is quite lengthy, even though, we haven't got into a lot of details on the assessments. I guess as you start scrolling through the pages, you really start to visualize and realize, and I'm sure there's always a few surprises for anyone that would look at it to see, oh, that was damaged, and oh, that was quite extensive. So, we've taken our first shot. It's our first version completed with the high level preliminary information that we have, and there will be updates to the assessments and the schedule and for repairs and cost estimates and funding sources. It's a bit of a puzzle to put it all together, and what should we be doing now as we await for funding, or where will we find funding? And some things just need to be repaired. Of course, like the lift station, you have to sink the money into it. So really the intention of the report right now is to give council an idea of the magnitude of the damage and the perspective on potential mitigation that can be explored. It also facilitates those discussions that we will be and are already in the progress of having with funders such as MACA and the federal government and our insurance company. Director of Recreation mentioned a couple as well that we're trying to get creative to figure out how we can fund repair and replace, and in some cases make these assets better and more robust and stand the test of hopefully time, but time comes with more information as well. And to be honest, nobody's quite sure of what we just saw this year and what we'll see in the future, but we will rely on experts to help make those decisions. And for now, it's a step in moving forward. It does include in the report some mitigation opportunities that are primarily tied to the assets that are identified for repair and would be a capital outlay as opposed to, or at least an outlay of one-time spend to fix or improve those assets, I guess, as opposed to sort of a recurring operating expense not funded through the disaster assistance policy. We hear a lot of things on mitigation, sandbagging, and dynamite, and dredging, and planes and helicopters and everything else thrown into the mix that are worth exploring. Have been explored in many cases over the long history of the community and being in a flood zone. Flood maps, we've got dated flood maps. We're trying to work through those to get updated, and maybe luckily we didn't get them updated in the recent year because it may not have included information such as we're seeing today this year. And so that process is starting. We're hearing the media that the government is maybe making commitments as early as this year. That might be a bit optimistic, but anyways, you need that information to help make decisions for not only us as a local authority, but residents and businesses on what repair and mitigation looks like in some cases. But anyways, those more inclusive discussions on those short and long-term mitigation options will occur through the summer and into future years. Understanding again, like I said, what has occurred this year and what the future may look like will for Hay River will take time and involve all those levels of government. So while we look to recognize opportunities for more immediate repair and mitigation work, the reality is it's going to take years to properly prepare us for and fund the future of climate change and the impacts on our community. So with this information, again, it's a lot for our team to work through, and thankfully we've got some more senior representation, and those next steps we need to move through are bringing this information to the finance committee and discuss higher priority damage repair for this year, and ahead of really any secured funding. We have some insurance that's come through already, such as the Fisherman's Wharf. They've paid for those repairs, but still questions, as I mentioned earlier, on who's going to pay for this and how. We've taken a fairly ambitious approach towards incorporating some assets into that we've been monitoring and have had some problems with maybe erosion and such, and now those issues are compounded. So how do we kind of recognize the opportunity that comes through with disaster and build a better community? So anyways, we'll be working on that to work towards submitting our disaster assistance policy application and progress claims that we can submit now to cover especially response type costs to date.
Thank you, SAO Smith. Any questions from council? Councillor Wall, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. SAO Smith, I'm just wondering about your classification A, B, C. It looks like it makes sense, but I don't know the logic behind it. Just so that the citizens understand, I know people are going to wonder why things are mitigated or repaired before others. So maybe you could just explain your classification system. That would be great.
Yeah, and if I could pull it up here. So some of it's primarily tied to, there's different factors of consideration, but some of it is immediate need. So an A is thought to be, and again, pending discussions with the finance committee and council. Further, those types of assets that can be or need to be repaired this year. The priority is primarily assigned to repair, I'd say, as opposed to mitigation, although we have included that in the report. Those B level repairs maybe have a lower priority for usage at this time, especially in the summer, which is our construction period. And then you get into the C levels, which are more, nice to have, some of the mitigation efforts that, seek beyond repair. Those items that we recognize already that will need more lengthy discussion with engineers or with governments and funding partners to get to. So some of it is, it's primarily around need, but also what's really attainable this year versus, a better investment of time and finding money towards getting to those C-level assets. In the report, we have taken an attempt at actually putting completion dates to the items as well. So again, more information is needed to progress it, but it opens the door for discussions with council and residents and committees and administration to firm up a bit further.
Thank you. Councillor Bouchard, go ahead.
Yeah, and I know this is just a preliminary list, and I just kind of looking through, and you're just like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that and seeing this in that area. But one that I just, I've seen manholes and catch basins, but I was wondering about like a check valve system for some of our storm sewers. Like we had issues downtown, we had issues on Cranberry and Saskatoon where storm sewers were, the water was coming in that way and kind of check valves. Is there any kind of potential for that type of repairs or inclusion into our storm sewer system to be able to prevent some of, I think some of that caused extra flooding, but yeah.
SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, we have had discussions on that internally. A lot, it is limited in some cases of what we actually could do. A lot of our storm outlets do have kind of gates or flaps on them that prevent a backflow, but your river gets to a certain height and it won't push water back through the valve, but you still have snow melt coming, especially this year, and ground melt, and that goes into your storm and then just kind of backs up, right? Because it's plugged, it can't go anywhere. So that's what we saw with downtown, right? But yeah, there is a little bit of opportunities there. Also talking about our gates, gate controls, such as on Ravine, you know, how the controls were underwater as we were dewatering, took a while to get to them. So extending those is planned. That's very trivial, but already in the plan. So yeah, it's not typically a big expense, but it is included in our where we do see manholes and such, or storm systems. Miron storm outlets as an example are explicitly listed here.
Thank you. Anything further from council? Councillor Dufert, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to commend the Office of the SAO for the report that they did put together. I know in waiting for it, I was a bit apprehensive because I thought it was going to be a pretty monumental task, given the amount of damage that we had. And I just want to commend them all on a good job. It was very easy to read, and, you know, so much damage to get into one little report. And I found it easy reading, and it gave me a feeling of comfort that, you know, we had a handle on what had happened and a plan to get things going again. So good job on that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Dufert. Any other questions from council? None being noted. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 6C is an excused absence for Councillor Chambers. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Move that the Council of Town of Hay River excuses Councillor Chambers from the regular meeting of council June 28th, 2022.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Dufert. Any questions to the motion? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, where are we? Can I get the agenda up there? Oh, well, look at us go. Number 7 is notice of motions, and we have none. Item number 8 is in camera. We have nothing for in camera. So item number 9, Councillor Willows.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we adjourn.
Thank you all. Have a great week. Enjoy your long weekend, and please come out and celebrate Canada Day with us.
See you at the barbecue.
Everyone.